and specifically for teachers, like many of them aren't going to listen to this. Like, what is like one practical like application tip that like you want to share with educators doing this work? And I want you to like move past like it has to be mindset first. Like, let's assume that they like are in the
Yeah.
right mindset place. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, Having that discussion around what makes you feel like you belong. How do you want to be treated?
Well,
Um,
yeah. So can you talk about, can I
just
set you up this way? Like,
yeah,
how
set
do you
me.
talk about setting up classroom agreements?
Yeah, okay. So when we talk about setting up classroom agreements, we want to talk about what respect looks like.
Hmm.
What does it look like when a student respects the teacher?
Hmm.
What does it look like when a student respects another student?
Hmm.
And what does it look like when the teacher respects the student? And the way I would do it is you have young people to answer that question individually. Then you bring them together in groups of 4 or 5 and have them to collaborate on what they wrote and to mark out anything that is the same,
Hmm.
just, leaving one. And then as a collective class, you list them on a chart sheet of paper
Hmm.
until everyone has agreed that this is how we want to be in community with one another. And once everyone agrees, and everyone has to agree, and if someone doesn't agree on something, we talk about, well, what can we do to help you, or understanding why they may have an issue with it, listen to them, see how we can compromise on it, and then I would have my students to sign it. And with their signature, it becomes theirs. And I let them know this is yours. This
Yeah.
doesn't this is yours. And then at the end of each quarter, I would revisit the
Yeah.
respect agreements and I check in. How are we doing with our respect agreements? Is there anything we need to take off? Is there anything we need to add?
I've done a similar exercise, and we
Mhm.
had this like very silly class who I won't get very specific because like if the person whose like class this was listening, they'll know exactly what it is. But like
Yeah.
they all in a similar exercise like wrote this like very, very silly agreement about respect that like would not have been conducive to like classroom environments. What do you do as a teacher
Hmm.
as an authority figure, right? Like as much as like we're trying to like build that like horizontal like power sharing space, like what do you do when students put out things that won't work for you?
Right. So, and even when we talk about the hierarchical or whatever, whenever I sit in circle with young people, that's why I kind of release that hierarchical piece. But when I am in the classroom as an educator, I do work in that role while young people understand while Miss McNair is the leader in this class, while she is the authority figure in this class, I can still come to her because I'm still human.
Hmm.
So I did want to just mention that. So there was one of the things I didn't like in my classroom was eating and
Hmm.
drinking. And I didn't want anybody drinking anything sticky because if you spill it, the floor gets sticky, and I'm a stickler about clean floors. So when they wanted to say, we can eat in class, um, I had to have a conversation because we had to compromise on that. And one of the agreements that we came up with was if you need to drink something, you can drink it right outside the door. Anything that was inappropriate for the classroom, let's say students are allowed to curse. Let's say that was one of the,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, then I would ask them, I say, okay, well, let's discuss profanity.
Hmm.
Um, can you name a group of people who really don't use profanity? And of course, somebody may say, oh, Christians. Somebody may say, oh, Muslims. Somebody may say, oh, grown people or certain grown people. I said, okay. I said, so if they came into the classroom and they heard you all using profanity, I said, how do you think that will make them feel? I said, so do you really think we should have that type of agreement? So I would kind of help them to see how maybe this agreement would have a negative impact on other people
Hmm.
to have them use their empathy skills. Uh,
Right.
mhm.
I just want to highlight for folks that like as a teacher, as a classroom leader, and I'll save that last layer for a second.
Yeah.
Like you are also a participant in that space, and like so your voice gets to be in there as well. It's not like free for all, like whatever they want is the
Hmm.
environment we're building. Like the compromises that we're making, like the consensus that we're building, isn't that everybody gets their way, but like these are things that like everybody can live with,
Yes.
right? And like your no, this doesn't work for me doesn't just get to be no, and like that's it. It's like no, but this is what will work. And so that's beautiful. I'm curious though, how have you seen this applied to school leaders and their staff?
Ooh. Had a situation where we were doing some agreements, and one of the agreements was no cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there was someone who was waiting on an important call, and she did not agree with the no cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
And we went around a couple of times, and people expressed their concerns. Um, she continued to share her concern. So what we did was we said, okay, well, why don't we take this agreement and circle it or put a star by it? I think what we did for me, I circled it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so we agree on these with the understanding that all of us do not agree on the no cell phone. Are we able to live with these agreements with the agreement that all of us don't agree on the no cell phone? And they were okay with that. She was able to keep her agreement there,
Mm-hmm.
and they were able to agree with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So those who believed in the no cell phone chose not to do the cell phone. And she, of course, did not use the cell phone. And I believe it is because she felt like her voice was heard. But she never used a cell phone.
Yeah.
She, and I think it was one of those, I don't want you to control my use of the cell phone because my cell phone is an important part of me. I
Mm-hmm.
think and this is just me making my own assumption. I think that's what it may have been for her. But the fact that her voice still remained on that agreement, she she
Yeah.
didn't she didn't use a cell phone.
Well, I mean, I think what you like said quickly is like y'all went around a couple times, right? And the discussion and the stories that people told about like why this agreement was important to them versus like why it wasn't important to them, like also informed her that like these people care about like me, one, being a part of this and like acknowledging my voice, but two, like they also want to have their learning environment or their working environment be this way. And so like
Yeah.
while I want to maintain like my autonomy and like the ability to like take a really important phone call,
Mhm.
um like I'm gonna like do my best to like continue to create the environment that my colleagues want to participate in. And like this is not like this conversation is not about whether or not people can use cell phones at work. This
Right.
conversation is about like how people can come together around a certain issue even if there's disagreement on something that like people well, sorry, not come together but like move forward in a good way when there's disagreement about like how people see these issues. So, if you want to learn more about all the wisdom that Robin has to offer and her deeper stories, tune in to the full episode of This Restorative Justice Life on Thursday. And until then, take care.